Buyer beware. It's free agency time, Sam, and there's always going to be a lot of money floating around the NFL. Free agents tend to get overpaid, and we're just going to warn the NFL about a few players. It's not that we don't like these players, but given the money that they might get, we're just going to say buyer beware. So let's start with LeVeon Bell, the big name, the running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, formerly of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He hits the open market. Here's the thing I'm hearing from teams like, or fans from the Jets or the Colts, the teams that have a ton of money. LeVeon Bell's the guy. He's the guy that's going to take Sam Darnold and have him take the next step. He's the guy that's going to help Andrew Luck and the Colts solidify their offense. But I don't know if that's the case.
No, look, running backs, you can go find the video that we've got on this channel where we talk about how running backs simply aren't the thing that drives rushing success. They are way down the pecking order, and what's actually determining whether they succeed on the ground or not. It's the offensive line. It's a whole bunch of other factors that go into this.
Including the pass game itself that helps the run game.
So as talented as LeVeon Bell is, and he's one of the better players in the NFL, he's soon to be 27 years old. He is the perfect free agent running back. Running backs just aren't worth throwing the money at anymore that they used to be. And you kind of feel sorry for these guys because they're amongst the best athletes in the game. They play maybe the most attritional, abrasive position in all of football. If anybody deserves to get money for what they're doing, it's running backs. But you can replace them with a guy who is, most of the way there to what they would do, and they will have success if you have the offensive line in place, if you have the passing game in place. So the idea that anybody should throw money at LeVeon Bell to fix their problem of a running game is just a fallacy.
If there is one running back that can, potentially get to that value, though, it is LeVeon Bell because of what he does in the pass game. He's really good, not only just catching passes out of the backfield, but lining up out wide as a mismatch weapon, as a receiver. If you are going to get value out of a running back, an Alvin Kamara type, even a Saquon Barkley type, you have to use them in that role. The question becomes here, though, we have an article over on ProFootballFocus.com. Our friend Jason Fitzgerald from Over the Cap projects 4 years, $60 million for LeVeon Bell, including $33 million guaranteed. That would be the buyer beware component to this. Even if you have a ton of money to play around with, probably better spent elsewhere besides a running back like LeVeon.
Right, or a fraction of that money spent on a different running back, and you get more or less the same production.
All right, let's get to a few other players. We're looking at Daondre Buchanan. We're calling him a linebacker now, even though he was drafted as a safety. He is kind of this new safety turned linebacker in the NFL. Everybody's getting smaller at the linebacker level. So Buchanan has essentially become a linebacker over the last few years. However, we've seen declining grades since 2015. The run game may not matter, but if you get blocked over and over in the run game, you're going to give up 5, 6, 7 yards a pop. That's kind of been Buchanan's issue. Undersized for linebacker, and it shows on the field as well.
Right, he's one of these players that got a lot of notoriety because he changed positions from safety to linebacker, but I don't know that he did it that well. Like, the first year was impressive. It was a PFF grade of 72.6, but as you said, the grades have gone down, down, down every single year since then. 61.3, 47.8, and then 45.3. This past season was his worst year hitting free agency. You have to ask yourself the question, okay, it's impressive to position switch from safety to linebacker, but how good a linebacker is this guy? And, is it worth spending money to get him in free agency versus A, somebody else we could get, or B, a player we could draft?
Next player to discuss is Tampa Bay Bucks offensive tackle Donovan Smith. He was drafted in 2015, with Jameis Winston. And you see teams do this all the time. They get the quarterback in round 1. They get the blindside protector in round 2. You have to pair those guys together. However, Smith has had 4 below average seasons as the starting left tackle for the Tampa Bay Bucks. We've seen a lot of offensive tackles through the years start slow and show some progression. He's shown a little bit of progression, but is it enough to really lock him up long term?
No, it's not even close. We've allowed more than 42 pressures every year of his career. Donovan Smith, on his best day, is an average player, and his best day doesn't come along very often. So you're looking at a below average at best, bad at worst offensive tackle. And at this point, it's time to let somebody else take the risk and see if they can reclaim him as a potential prospect.
Especially when you look at the money that left tackles are making. I like what our friend George Shahori says over here. Maybe you should just draft left tackles, get those few years out of him, but try to sign right tackles because you could save some money. Sometimes you could flip them over to the left side as well, like the Patriots did with Trent Brown this year. At linebacker, it's Donovan Smith's teammate, Quan Alexander, another guy we're looking at. Even though he's young, he has the athleticism, he has the flash plays, he also has the negative plays at linebacker. So this is one of those things we have to watch every single play, not just the highlights, to truly understand the way Quan Alexander has played the last couple of years.
Yeah, Alexander, I think, is a player that could potentially draw that overpaying tag because his highlight plays are fantastic. He's athletic, he's quick, he makes impressive reads sometimes, and when it all comes together, the plays look spectacular. But again, it's what PFF does. It's how often does that happen and what happens in between. And that's where Quan Alexander's tape and his grade consequently falls down because there's just too much bad in there in between all the good plays that he makes.
Two more names to touch on quickly. Wide receiver Chris Hogan of the New England Patriots. He peaked in 2016, struggled the last couple of years. I thought this year, him and Brady just not really on the same page. But even when you just saw him catching a few passes in the flat, you know, he's not this shifty slot receiver like the Patriots have had in recent years. His big year in 2016 was a lot of busted coverages down the field where he was just kind of in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and this is a pretty bad receiving group in terms of free agency. It's not the time to need a wide receiver, and that's about the only thing that might push Chris Hogan up into relatively impressive money. This year we saw really all we need to know in terms of the Patriots needed some kind of legitimate outside threat at wide receiver, and Chris Hogan, amongst others, was unable to provide that.
And then Cedric Ogbuehi from the Cincinnati Bengals, drafted a few years ago, based off of upside and potential, Sam, but we just have not seen it on the field.
Right. I mean, it's tough to know exactly what the upside is, what the selling point is of Cedric Ogbuehi, because it was a disaster for the Bengals when he started at tackle, and I'm not entirely sure what you could possibly have seen other than, you know, college tape and the idea that we can get the potential out of him that Cincinnati couldn't, to convince you that he'd be worth pursuing as a free agent.
Yeah, struggled in pass protection at Texas A&M and also in the NFL over the last few years. So there you have it. Free agency about to start very shortly, so buyer beware on these few players.